Hi, in this video I'd like to show you my new plugin that will be available on Marketplace. In fact, it's probably already available as you watch this video. It's a simple plugin that introduces Spline component but with instant static meshes for better performance. So unlike the regular Spline that modifies the meshes but consists of a lot of draw calls. This one uses instant static meshes under the hood, so it's quite efficient to use it. And it offers some cool features. It's very simple and lightweight plugin, so I highly recommend you check it out. But let's get to it. So there are two ways to get this plugin working with your project. There is not much you have to do, obviously, but you can access it from the place actors tab, and you just type simple and it's gonna be called simple instance spline actor. You just drag and drop it in a level. As you can see, there is like 2 points over here. So if I kind of just grab the second one and move it around, it's just like a regular spline, right? Now, what we're gonna do, okay, I'm gonna put it back to be very short, and then in the actor details panel, you'll have settings, uh, and there will be a couple of settings over here. Each of them is very well documented when you hover over them. So if you don't know something, there's probably a lot of good information about it when you hover over it. So um, what you need to do right now is, or what you can do is, you've got the meshes array here. If you press the plus button, you will see the new entry in the array, just like a regular thing. You have the entry for the mesh that you want to create here. You've got a local location and rotation of the mesh, which is something you'll see later. Um, and you have two options whether or not to align it to ground for the rotation and location. You'll see what that means in a bit. So we're just gonna grab a simple cube for now. As you can see, nothing appeared right here, right? It's not that it's bugged or something. Remember that the spline needs to be long enough to contain at least one mesh of this type. So when I expand it, you'll be able to see the mesh. And if you expand it even more, you'll see another one and another one and another one. Right? So that's how it works. If you have a huge mesh, let's say you want to place around the buildings or something like this, something big, then remember about this fact. It needs to be long enough to contain the building or whatever mesh you have. So you can add more entries here. That's not an issue. All of them needs to be valid. So if it's invalid, it's just not gonna show up. So let's say I'm gonna go with the sphere. Maybe not this one. Yep, there you go. As you can see now, they're kind of working like one cube, one sphere, one cube, one sphere. It's because that's how they place in the array, right? So it's cube, sphere, and then it's gonna go back to cube and sphere, back and sphere, cube and sphere. If you want to randomize them, because you can, you just press the, you just highlight the randomize boolean here. As you can see, nothing changed really, but that's still correct behavior because there is another thing here. It's called allow equal neighbors. Because there is only two meshes and this is not enabled, it means that it won't allow the same two meshes next to each other. That's why this randomization with two meshes doesn't make any sense. So if I highlight this, you will be able to see a couple of meshes in a row. So if you've got a button here, you can refresh this randomization by just dragging it around and it will regenerate the entire array of things. But you can also press the button if you want to, so it's just up to you. If you don't wanna move it around, so you have it placed in a level, but you can still just randomize it by pressing generate meshes. So that's one thing. If I was to add another mesh, that would in this case be, for example, cone. Yep. Then you can already see that the randomization with 3 meshes, even though this allow equal neighbors is not highlighted, it's already much better. So the more meshes you have, the better randomization is obviously gonna be. So that's it for the randomization of the meshes. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the ground alignment feature. For each of these meshes, you can ground align them. So if I wanted to ground align this cube, I'm just gonna go with this. And if I wanted to ground align its rotation, I'm gonna hide this. As a rotation, it's probably gonna be better if I go around like that. And I just, as you can see, they just go through the mountain here. If I just highlight it like that, you'll see the location being snapped to the ground. If I do it with the rotation as well, you'll be able to see that they kind of match the rotation of the ground at this point, right? So sometimes you want to use it, sometimes you don't. If I do it for all of the meshes, you'll be able to see it for all of them. There you go. Another cool thing is, as you can see, your spline right here is kind of underground right now. So there is a feature. It doesn't make any difference if you do ground alignment for the meshes, but you also can do ground alignment for the spline itself. It doesn't add anything to the to how it looks, the generation, but it adds to how you can work with it, right? Because it's deep below the terrain level, so it might be hard to click later or something. So just go with this, and each point of this spline will be now ground aligned and probably better accessible like that. So that's something to keep in mind. There is also another feature, which is the mesh gap. These meshes have their bounds very specifically, so you might not be able to see this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove those meshes. As you can see, there is no gap between them. If you want to create a gap, you can go with this feature, and the x-axis is basically just a minimum and y-axis is maximum. So basically, if you want them to be randomized, the gaps, you just type different values in here. So if I type 20 and 20, it's always going to be 20. So the gaps are equal everywhere. But if I do like 0 and let's say 100, you'll be able to see that those gaps are quite random now, to a degree. So yeah, so that's also a cool feature if you're creating like fences or you know, kind of something more meaningful than just the cubes. It's probably gonna add some variety to your level design, I think. There is another cool feature with this. So if it's worth noting that if you wanted to add another spline point, you just highlight one of the points, hold Alt key, left Alt, and drag it like that. You're gonna add another point, right? So now I have third point here. So as you can see, it starts curving, just like the spline shows. So as you can see, it's not really exactly where the spline is right now, and it's because the meshes are created based on their location is calculated based on where the previous mesh ends, not exactly where the spline is. which causes this behavior. So to fix that, you can just increase the sharp corner accuracy. It's probably not visible right here because let's try it out. Maybe what I could do is add another spline point here, so you'll be able to see that they kind of don't really match this. Okay, it's hard to show because there's sometimes very like sharp corners with this. It's probably visible right now. There's like quite sharp corner over here, so it's gonna go out. It's not a bug. It's something that I was aware of while coding this. I wanted this to be matching the previous mesh position, not exactly the spline. So that's why they kind of very nicely match. But also, if you want to fix it to be on the spline, you can just increase the accuracy. And if you go maximum 5 accuracy, it's pretty much exactly where the spline is. So, so if your stuff doesn't match, just go ahead and use it this way. So another feature of this would be centrifugal force. It's not a real centrifugal force, but it's something that might be useful for some people. And I don't know how visible it's going to be with the cubes, but let's see. Centrifugal force, how it works. I'm going to show you and draw you something here. So basically what happens, if you have a sharp corner like that, normally let's assume that you are building like kind of barriers on the side of the road, which means that if there are cars running around this road, it's highly possible for them to kind of hit the barrier and bend it outside. So the centrifugal force here, the way it works, all of the meshes are like oriented like that. They're looking up and up and up, and the closer they get to the actual sharp corner, the more outside oriented they will be. So they will kind of bend outside. Not really bent, but they will be just rotated, you'll see, and then we go back to normal rotation. So in practice, you can scale the strength of this force. So you can go like say 30, maybe 100. So I knew this is not gonna be visible in the cubes. It's not gonna be visible in the cubes very well. Damn it. Let's see. Maybe we can make it. It's gonna be more. The more sharp the corner is, the more visible that's gonna be. It's multiplied by this corner sharpness, let's say. So as you can see, they're already getting rotated towards outside. If I just decrease that, you get straight cubes, and if you increase that, you can get them to kind of rotate in the corner like that. It might not be very visible with the cubes, but if you create fences or barriers, that's gonna definitely be visible very well. I use this plugin for my game, and I tried to build some cool stuff and fences with this, and it was really good. It added some variety and a natural feeling to the game, so I thought why not add it to the plugin as well. Yeah, there's one more thing I want to. Oh, sorry, two things I wanted to talk about. There is a feature called first mesh and last mesh. You can, if you wanted, for example, to create let's say it's a fence and it's you want to put some like I don't know, a gate in the end or at the beginning of it. For the purpose of this talk, I'm just gonna use sphere. You can set a first mesh to be something particular, something different to everything else, or the same like something else. Anyways, you can set the first mesh to be something particular, as well as setting the last mesh to also be something particular. So you don't have to use those. You can use one of them, you can use two of them, but it's definitely possible to use them. and they're right there for you. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I only enabled this, I only exposed this from C++ in case somebody has some issues with the CPU, but normally you want this first feature to be always enabled. So basically it's a asynchronous generation. Basically what it means that if it's enabled, this very first one, it means that the whole mathematics of this spline will be calculated on completely separate thread, and it's not gonna bottleneck your level design. So if I disable this, um, and I drag it around, and the longer it gets, you will be able to see. Maybe if I do stat FPS, you will be able to see I've got 120 frames per second. If I start dragging this, it goes significantly down, and the longer it gets, there is more maths to it, and there is more calculations, and there is more meshes, and therefore it's just gonna go down. The meshes are instanced, so this is the entire thing here is just one draw call, so that's cool. However, the generation itself can get pretty nasty when you kind of do it like that, and you get the ground alignment and everything. There's quite a couple of heavy things for the CPU. Probably nobody wants to build the spline along like this, but it's definitely not very pleasant to work with when you do have to do it this slow. So asynchronous generation, what it basically means, it will move entire maths to the separate thread. If I enable this, as you can see, I'm not losing any frames. I can do it very quickly and without um, any hiccups and hitches in the editor. So that's cool. I think you should use this feature at all times. It's definitely in stable state right now. It shouldn't crash and shouldn't cause any problems. If it does, though, please let me know. And as I said, I use this for my personal project as well, so it's constantly in development. If I find any bugs with this or my level designers, I'll address it straight away. But if you do find some bugs with it, you can definitely go ahead and you know hit me up with this, and we'll see what we can do. As you can see, I already generated quite a long spline, and I don't really have any hitches in the editor. So obviously it breaks here because we don't have any ground here to align to. So we're gonna go like that. Yep. As you can see, its generation right now takes few seconds, let's say. So I wish I could make it more, but my terrain is just not big enough to encompassate this spline. But if you make it big enough, it will take, let's say, a couple of seconds for your generation. That's when you're gonna see. I'm probably not gonna be able to see that, to show that here, but if it takes longer than 2 seconds to generate it, you will see notification right here on the right bottom, and it will just show you that the meshes are being generated. So if this whole thing disappears for a couple of seconds because you have very long spline, don't be worried about it, because that's a normal thing. It's a separate thread, so the separate thread of your CPU works, does that work, and that's why you have to wait for it. But at least you don't get your computer completely frozen. So that's a thing to keep in mind. I think that's everything for this video. I don't think there is much more to talk about. It's very simple plugin. There is a couple of cool features with this, but it's mainly built to create some kind of fences, walls, maybe a list of buildings or something like that. So it can definitely kind of like see and definitely use it for many purposes. At the moment, the ground alignment works only on the terrain, on the landscape. It is something that I will be changing in the near future, so you'll be able to ground align this to also another static measure. So if you have like a floor in a building or something, you will be able to align this to the ground as well. However, at the moment it only aligns to the landscape. But yeah, it's gonna be quite simple change. So when I do change it, it's not gonna break your current levels, because in order for this to snap to the ground again, you would need to modify it or press generate meshes again. So you don't have to be worried about it at all. So yeah, I think that's it for this video, and hit me up with any questions with it and ask for features if you need to, and if I have some spare time, I'm definitely happy to improve this, and see you later.